My name is Alex. I'm 25 years old, and I live in a quiet coastal town called Seabrook. I work as a librarian, which is perfect because I love the smell of old paper and the silence of the shelves. But my ordinary life became anything but ordinary. One stormy Tuesday morning. The wind was howling outside, rattling the windows of my little apartment above the bakery. I was making my morning coffee when my phone buzzed with an email. It wasn't a normal email. The subject line was simply, "The hourglass is empty." I opened it, my heart doing a strange little flip. The email was from an address I didn't recognize, and the message inside was just a single blurry photograph, a close-up of the old clock tower in the town square, but the hands were missing. Below the photo was a cryptic sentence. "Meet me at the chime of midnight. Bring the key." I didn't understand. What key? Who was this person? And why the old clock tower? No one had been up there in decades. I tried to reply, but the email bounced back. I called my best friend, Liam, an aspiring journalist. His phone went straight to voicemail. A knot of worry tightened in my stomach. I knew I couldn't ignore it. Something about the picture, about the missing clock hands, felt urgently wrong. I changed into my sturdy brown jacket and my walking boots. Before I left, I looked at a framed antique key that had hung above my desk since I was a child. My grandmother had always told me, "This key unlocks more than a door, Alex. Keep it safe." On a whim, I took it down, wrapped it carefully in a piece of velvet, and slipped it into my inner pocket. I left my apartment and walked toward the town center. The rain was coming down in sheets. The familiar streets of Seabrook felt strangely empty, as if the town itself was holding its breath. As I neared the square, I saw a flashing blue light outside the town hall. 2 police officers were cordoning off the area near the clock tower. I slowed my pace, pretending to check my phone. I heard one officer say, "Looks like someone tried to climb it. Must have slipped." My blood ran cold. Slipped. I walked quickly past the scene, my eyes scanning the ground. Near the base of the tower, tucked beneath a broken wooden crate, I saw something shiny. I waited until the police had their backs turned, then I casually bent down. It was a small silver locket on a thin chain. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. I opened the locket. Inside was a tiny photo of Liam. He was the one who sent the email. The truth hit me like a blast of cold wind. Liam hadn't slipped. He was in trouble, and he was trying to send me a message. The time, midnight. I knew the police would never let me near the tower. I had to find another way. I turned and ran into the narrow alley beside the old post office. This alley led to the back entrance of the bakery, and from there, a hidden staircase, one only the longtime locals knew about, led to the attic of the adjoining tailor shop, which had a window that overlooked the clock tower. I reached the bakery, slipped in through the employee entrance, and raced up the dusty, creaking stairs. The tailor shop attic was dark and smelled of mothballs and old wool. I found the small, grimy window and looked out. The clock tower was massive from this angle. The police were still milling about below. As I watched, a sudden movement caught my eye. Near the very top where the clock face was, a tiny piece of red fabric was snagged on the scaffolding. It was the color of Liam's favorite scarf. I had to get up there. I left the attic and hurried to the Seabrook Library, my workplace. I needed information, and I knew exactly where to find it. The dusty old town records in the restricted archives. I unlocked the heavy metal door and searched until I found what I was looking for. The architectural blueprints for the clock tower. The plans showed a hidden maintenance ladder running up the inside wall of a long-forgotten supply closet on the tower's ground floor. The closet, according to the map, was behind the old memorial plaque. I raced back to the town square. The police were finally leaving. The area was cleared. I approached the clock tower, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against the key in my pocket. I found the heavy, weathered bronze plaque and pushed on the edges as hard as I could. It was bolted tight. Frustrated, I leaned closer, examining the plaque. Then I noticed an inscription, one I'd never paid attention to. Time passes, but secrets remain locked. Below the final word was a tiny, almost invisible keyhole. I pulled out the velvet-wrapped antique key. It was tarnished and dull, but it was the right size. My hands were shaking as I pushed the key into the slot and slowly turned it. There was a soft click. The massive bronze plaque swung inward, revealing a small, dark closet and a rusty metal ladder stretching into the darkness above. I climbed, the dust thick in the air. The climb felt endless. When I finally reached the top, I pushed through a trapdoor and found myself in the clock's maintenance room, right behind the enormous clock face. And there was Liam. He was tied to a support beam, shivering but alive. Next to him, on a small wooden table, was an old, heavy leather satchel. "Alex, you came," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Someone forced me up here. They took something they thought was in the key." I quickly untied him. "Who? What did they take?" Liam rubbed his wrists and looked at the satchel. "They were after this. An old journal. They must have thought the key opened it, but when I told them I didn't have a key for the bag, they left, saying they'd be back at midnight for the chime." I looked at the satchel, then back at the massive, handless clock mechanism. "The key didn't open a door, Liam. It turned on the power." Just as I spoke, the clock tower began to rumble. We looked up in horror as a mechanical screech echoed through the tower. A small light flickered on, the tower's internal lighting. Then, slowly, the two massive hands, which had been stored on a shelf beside us, began to move on a hidden track. They were installing themselves. The mechanism was powering up. "We have to go," I shouted, grabbing the leather satchel. We scrambled back down the ladder just as the tower's gears began to grind into life. We tumbled out of the closet and sprinted away from the tower. We didn't stop until we were safely back in my apartment. Liam, clutching the satchel, finally explained. He'd been investigating an old Seabrook legend about a hidden pirate treasure. He'd traced the lead to the clock tower and the old maintenance key. The person who followed him must have been another treasure hunter, someone who had intercepted his email to me. I looked at the satchel, then at the clock tower silhouette outside my window. The hands were now fixed, moving slowly toward the witching hour. "Well," I sighed, handing him a warm cup of coffee. "Looks like they'll be very disappointed when they show up at midnight and the only thing waiting is an empty platform." Liam smiled, a real smile this time. "You're my hero, Alex, the keymaster." I felt a surge of warmth. It was scary, but I was proud I had stayed brave. We spent the rest of the morning poring over the old leather satchel, wondering what incredible story it held. The city lights shone through the rain, and I knew that sometimes the most exciting adventures are hidden right in the middle of our quiet, everyday lives. What do you think was inside that old leather satchel?